There is a particular kind of quiet that settles over a courthouse hallway at 9 in the morning. The floors are that beige linoleum that reflects light without warmth. The benches are the same dark wood they've been since 1974. People sit on them the way people sit in waiting rooms, not resting, just pausing, holding things, documents, coffee cups. The careful expression of someone who has decided how they want to look before they walk through a door. I was sitting on one of those benches on April 14th, when I heard my wife of 38 years tell her attorney that she knew everything about me worth knowing. She wasn't speaking to me. She was 15 feet away, going over her notes with a man in a suit that didn't fit his shoulders. She was calm, organized. She had a number in mind. She said, "We both know you never saved anything, Lawrence." I didn't look up. I watched the second hand on the wall clock make one full rotation. Then I put my hands on my knees and I sat there, and I thought about 28 years of mail that had arrived at our house and gone straight into the recycling bin. She was about to walk into that courtroom and tell a federal judge that I was worth $340,000. She was not wrong because she was lying. She was wrong because she had never opened a single envelope. Welcome to real-life verdict. Get comfortable. The people in this story had every chance to behave themselves. They just chose wrong. Drop a comment, hit that like button, and make sure you're subscribed. And let me back up, because you need to understand who we're talking about. I am 64 years old. I spent 37 years as a master electrician, started as an apprentice at 19, carrying wire through crawl spaces and pulling conduit in August heat, and ended as senior foreman for a regional commercial contractor with 46 men on my crew. I retired 11 months ago. I know how to find a fault in a three-phase system at 2 in the morning in the dark with a meter that's reading wrong. That is a specific skill. Most people do not have it. I live in the same house I bought with Patricia in 1987. 3 bedrooms, 2 acres, about 6 miles outside town. She moved out 11 months ago after she filed. I still have her coffee mug in the cabinet. Not for sentimental reasons. I just haven't decided what to do with it. I drive a 2004 Ford Ranger with a 187,000 miles on it. Repainted it myself in the garage 4 years ago when the clear coat failed. I used a good brush and took my time. If you look at it in the right light, you can see the strokes. I know they're there. It never bothered me. Every August for the past 19 years, I've run the electrical safety inspection for the county fair, generator loads, vendor hookups, the whole grid, on my own time, with my own tools, because if someone's kid gets hurt on a ride because of a wiring fault I could have caught, I would have to live with that. So I go. Patricia managed our household finances for 23 years. She took the bookkeeping job at the dentist's office the year our youngest started school, and from that point on she handled the bills, the checking account, the mail. I would have let her handle more if she'd wanted. She had the checkbook. She had full access to everything joint. That's who Patricia is. Organized, capable, comfortable, in charge of what she could see. I loved her for a long time. I want to be clear about that. The mail arrived every day around 2 in the afternoon. Patricia would sort it at the kitchen counter. Bills to the left, magazines to the right, anything with a window envelope or a mailing label that looked automated went straight into the recycling. She was efficient. She'd been doing it so long her hands moved before her eyes finished reading. One evening, maybe 2003, I came in from the garage and she was going through a stack. I watched her hands. She sorted 14 pieces of mail in under 40 seconds. Most went in the bin. I didn't say anything. She said, "Dinner's in 20 minutes. I said, "Okay." That was 2003. I thought about that evening for a long time before I understood what it meant. April 14th was a Thursday. I had driven to the courthouse alone, parked the Ranger in the far corner of the lot the way I always do, fewer door dings, and arrived at the bench outside courtroom 3B at 9:37, which was 23 minutes before the initial hearing. I had the notice in my hand. I had my reading glasses in my shirt pocket. I had not yet retained an attorney because I had not yet understood that I needed one. My attorney hadn't arrived. I was waiting. That's when Patricia and Michael Chen came down the hall. She was composed. He had a leather portfolio on the shoulders of a man who had told himself something reassuring over breakfast. They stopped about 15 feet from my bench. Patricia had a yellow legal pad and she was reading from it. She said, We both know you never saved anything, Lawrence. She said it the way you'd say the weather was going to hold. Not mean, not satisfied, just factual. The way you state something that doesn't require discussion because everyone in the room already knows it. Michael Chen nodded and made a note. I did not react. I did not look up. I did not say her name or stand up or clear my throat. I watched the second hand on the clock on the wall across from my bench. One full rotation. 60 seconds. I thought about the brokerage statement that had come to the house the previous month. Standard white envelope. Return address out of St. Lope, Louis. I had picked it up off the counter where it had been left. She had already sorted it into the recycling and then apparently thought better of it, or it had slipped off the pile. I don't know. I had picked it up and put it in my jacket pocket. The balance had been $956,000 and some change. I want you to understand something about me. I did not get up from that bench and tell her she was wrong. I did not raise my voice or walk toward her or give her any signal at all that I had heard. This is not because I was afraid. It is because I am an electrician, and an electrician learns very early that you do not interrupt a circuit until you understand the full load on the system. You do not reach for the panel until you know what's behind it. I had one more thing to figure out. I had a phone call to make. Tom Alvarez found me in the parking lot after the hearing. I was sitting in the Ranger with the engine off, holding the notice in both hands. Patricia's claim total was right there at the top of the page, $340,000. I had read it 3 times. Tom tapped on the window. Tom is 61 years old and drives a 1996 Buick LeSabre with 312,000 miles on it that he bought from an estate sale for $800. He says it runs better than anything made after 2005. He is probably right. I rolled down the window. He looked at me. He looked at the paper. He said, "You need representation? I'll make some calls. No one gets taken apart on my watch." Tom did not ask what happened. He did not ask for the whole story or tell me it would be fine or say anything about Patricia. He just looked at me with an expression that had no conditions in it and took out his phone. I nodded once. I want you to notice what Tom didn't do. He didn't ask me to explain myself. He didn't say he needed to hear both sides. He didn't say he was sure Patricia had her reasons. He saw a man sitting in a parked truck with a paper in his hands, and he understood what kind of moment it was. I had known Tom since 1989. He installed the HVAC on a commercial job in '91, and we've had coffee every few weeks since. I had been to his mother's funeral. He had helped me rehang a section of fence after the storm in 2018. That's who Tom is. One sentence. No hesitation. He was already dialing before I said thank you. If you've been in a situation where the people around you had to decide what kind of people they were going to be, and I suspect some of you have, then you know how much that one sentence can mean. I want to hear from you in the comments about a time someone showed up like that, without being asked. But first, subscribe to this channel if you haven't yet. Because what happens in the next part of this story is the part most people don't see coming. Rita Kowalski is about to enter this story. And when she does, the calendar starts counting down. Let's keep going. Rita Kowalski's office is on the second floor of a building on Glendale Street. She keeps a mechanical adding machine on her desk, the kind with the paper tape that rolls out when you punch numbers. She said she likes the sound it makes. I understood that immediately. There are tools that work, and there are tools that work and feel like something. I have a Klein wire stripper from 1991 that still cuts cleaner than anything I bought since. Rita had been a family attorney for 30 years. Tom had worked with her on an estate matter 4 years earlier and said she was the type that finished what she started. I called her office on the morning of April 15th, and she fit me in for the 16th. I arrived with an accordion file, 28 years of records in chronological order. I had organized it the night before at the kitchen table, sorting by year under the fluorescent light. Property deeds, LLC, formation documents going back to 1996. Brokerage statements, tax returns. Every joint return Patricia had signed, each one with the schedules attached showing rental income and investment gains. I set the file on Rita's desk and opened it and spread the documents out without speaking. She put on her reading glasses and started at the beginning. She didn't say anything for 40 minutes. The adding machine sat on the edge of the desk. The paper tape didn't move. She turned pages. Occasionally she wrote something on a notepad. At the end of 40 minutes she looked up. "Lawrence," she said, "they're going to feel ambushed. That's the point. You did nothing wrong, but they're going to act like you hid the moon." I said. She threw away the statements. Rita wrote that down. I had been watching people for 37 years. Crew foremen, inspectors, contractors who'd made up their minds before they walked onto a job. I know what a person looks like when they understand the full voltage of a system and are deciding how to route it. Rita understood. She picked up her pen. She started making calls. I drove home on Route 9 with the windows down. It was overcast. A red-tailed hawk was sitting on a fence post near the Hendersons' property. I had seen that same hawk, or one just like it, in that same spot for 4 years. I don't know if birds have territory like that. Maybe they do. I want you to stay with me here, because this is where everything I thought I understood started to come apart. Not the marriage, not the filing, but my own sense of what I had let happen over 28 years by staying quiet. In 1995, I opened a brokerage account. I was 42 years old. Patricia was managing the bills, the kids were in school, and I was bringing home a foreman's salary I had no idea how to spend beyond what we needed. I had been watching a man on my crew lose everything in a bad investment, and I started reading. I read about dividend stocks, reinvestment, compounding. I opened the account with $11,000 I had saved from overtime over 2 years. That same year, the first statement arrived in the mail. White envelope. Return address out of St. Louis. I picked it up off the kitchen counter before Patricia sorted the afternoon mail, and I brought it out to the garage and opened it at my workbench. The balance was $11,000 and some change. I remember thinking, I should show her this. I walked back inside. Patricia was washing dishes. I said, "You want to see this?" She looked over her shoulder and said, "You handle that stuff," and went back to the dishes. I put the statement in the drawer in my workbench. That was the first one. After a while, I stopped going to the counter before she sorted the mail. The statements kept coming. She kept discarding them. I retrieved them from the recycling, or I found them on top of the pile, or sometimes they had already gone out with the bin. I kept what I could. I reinvested the dividends. I left the balance alone. In 1996, I formed an LLC. I bought a duplex on Meridian Avenue that a retiring plumber was trying to sell quickly. $87,000. The LLC document was filed at the county clerk's office, and a copy came to the house in a standard envelope. Patricia sorted it into recycling. I retrieved it and filed it in the accordion folder in my shop. I want to be clear about something. I did not hide these documents. I did not use a P.O. box. I did not have them sent to a second address. They came to our house, addressed to our house, the same as the electric bill and the dentist reminders. I just stopped suggesting she read them after the third or fourth time. She said, "You handle that stuff." I wondered during those years whether I should push harder, whether I should sit her down at the table and go through the numbers. I thought about it in the fall of 2001 when the brokerage account cleared $100,000, and I sat in the garage reading the statement alone. I thought about it in 2003 when I bought the 4-unit apartment building on Crane Street and signed a deed and drove home with the papers on the passenger seat. And she asked me how my day was, and I said, "Fine." I didn't push. I don't have a clean reason. The money felt like something I was tending, the way you tend a fence line or a truck engine, quietly, steadily, without making a production of it. I filed our joint tax returns every year with every schedule attached. Schedule E, rental income, dividend and capital gains. I put the return on the kitchen table and handed Patricia a pen, and I said, "I need your signature," and she signed, every year for 28 years. She never read the schedules. She had every right to know. She had full legal access to every document. She chose not to engage with them. That is the difference that matters. By May, the brokerage account was at $967,338.12. The LLC held 3 properties, the duplex on Meridian, the 4-unit on Crane, and a single family on Patterson I'd bought in 2011 for a rental. Combined equity was approximately $890,000. The 401k, rollover IRA from when the contractor was acquired in 2018, sat at $394,000. Patricia had told her attorney we had $40,000. I had one thing she had never accounted for. I had 28 years of paper that said otherwise, and I had a woman on the second floor of a building on Glendale Street who was going to let opposing counsel say the number out loud in open court before she opened the folder on her lap. The night of May 17th, I sat at the kitchen table where Patricia and I had eaten dinner for 31 years. The overhead light made the table look yellow. I had a cup of coffee. I had the brokerage statement. I read the balance one more time. $967,338.12. I put it back in the envelope. I washed the coffee cup and put it in the drying rack. In the cabinet, Patricia's mug was still there, white, with a blue stripe around the rim. I'd given it to her in 1994 for her birthday along with a coffee maker that eventually died. She kept the mug. I closed the cabinet door. I went to bed at 10. I had an appointment in the morning. May 18th. Courtroom 3B. I was there at 8:41, which was 19 minutes before the hearing. The same bench. The same beige linoleum. The same fluorescent light that hums at a frequency you stop hearing after the first 5 minutes. Rita sat beside me. She had a leather folder on her lap and her reading glasses in her jacket pocket. She did not review her notes. She sat with the stillness of someone who had done this many times and was no longer interested in performing preparation. Patricia and Michael Chen were in the same spot they had been on April 14th. He had his portfolio. His jacket fit exactly as badly as it had the first time. He glanced down the hall at us once, then turned back to Patricia. I watched him. He did not look concerned. He was going over talking points. He did not know what was in Rita's folder. Let me tell you what was in that folder. A bound document, 43 pages, containing 3 property deeds, LLC formation certificate dated 1996, 28 years of brokerage statements, 28 years of joint tax returns with every schedule attached, the IRA rollover notification mailed to our house in 2018, and a certified Mary sheet showing total marital assets of $2,999,200. Rita had gotten certified copies of the deeds from the county clerk on April 23rd. She had walked me through the full document on May 11th, page by page. When she showed me the total, she asked if I was ready. I signed my name at the bottom of the last page and drove home on Route 9 and checked the fence line and didn't think about it again until that morning. At 9 o'clock, the courtroom doors opened. At 9:17, Michael Chen finished his opening statement. He had been organized and thorough. He had told Judge Henrietta Moss that Patricia's financial disclosure reflected every marital asset, that the total marital estate was $340,000, and that Lawrence had been vague and uncooperative about finances throughout the marriage. He asked for an equitable split. He sat down. Judge Moss looked at Rita. "Counsel, is your client's financial disclosure ready?" Rita said, "It is, Your Honor." She stood. She submitted the bound document to the court. She handed a copy to Michael Chen across the aisle. He accepted it without hesitation. He still wasn't worried. He held it the way you hold something you expect to skim. Then Rita spoke. She said total marital assets were $2,999,200. She listed the brokerage account, $967,338.12. She listed the LLC properties, 3 addresses, combined equity $890,000, generating $1,400 per month in net rental income. She listed the IRA rollover, $394,000. She said all assets appeared on jointly filed tax returns signed by both parties for 28 years. She said statements had been mailed to the marital home without interruption. I watched Michael Chen's face while she read. He had stopped on the brokerage account. He was very still. He looked at Patricia. Patricia was looking at the page in her hand that showed the account balance. She had the expression of someone who has just heard a door close in a house they thought was empty. Judge Moss said, "Counsel, did you verify your client's financial claims before filing?" Michael Chen did not answer immediately. That is a long time to not answer a federal judge. Rita spoke into the silence. Your Honor, Mrs. Porskod, Lawrence had full access to joint tax returns showing this income for 28 consecutive years. Statements were mailed to the marital residence. She was notified by mail of the IRA rollover in 2018 as required by law. Judge Moss looked directly at Patricia. Mrs. Lawrence, did you review your joint tax returns before signing them? Patricia said, I signed what he gave me. Judge Moss said, did you read them? Patricia did not answer. She looked at the document in her hands. I don't know what she was looking at specifically. Maybe the brokerage balance. Maybe the duplex on Meridian, purchased 1996. Maybe she was adding numbers in her head and arriving at a figure that didn't match the one she had walked into this room believing. Judge Moss ordered a continuance. She requested verified documentation of all assets within 30 days. She noted on the record, and I want you to hear this slowly, that the initial disclosure was materially deficient and that the court would consider this when evaluating claims of non-disclosure or bad faith. We both know you never saved anything, Lawrence. I had not said that. I didn't need to. It was in the room. It had been in the room since Rita read the first number out loud. 28 years of envelopes arriving at that kitchen counter and going straight into the bin. I buttoned my jacket. I stood. I did not look at Patricia. I did not look at Michael Chen. I walked out of courtroom 3B into the hallway with the beige linoleum and the humming fluorescent light. I sat down on the bench. After 2 minutes I stood up, walked to the parking lot, and got in the Ranger. The morning was overcast. 54 degrees. The engine started on the first turn the way it always does. I put it in reverse and pulled out of the spot and drove to Route 9. The window was down 2 inches. The air coming in smelled like cut grass and diesel from a passing truck. I passed the fence post where the red-tailed hawk sits. It wasn't there this morning. Maybe it would be there later. I had driven this road 11 months ago when Patricia left with her suitcases and I had not known what to do with my hands. And I had driven it that morning after I watched a judge ask my wife a question she could not answer. Same road, same truck. The brush strokes in the paint are still visible in the right light. I am 64 years old. I know what it costs to build something slowly and quietly over a long time. I know what it costs to tend it without recognition. I know the difference between a man who hid the moon and a man who left the lights on and watched someone choose not to look up. She had the pen in her hand every year for 28 years. She signed her name. She put the pen down. That's all I have to say about that.